databases. You can get little bits and pieces of it, but you can't just whap, here's my database, thank you very much. And the probability factor you assign must never be 100% and absolutely never 0. So nothing gets a 0. You never say, oh, that's ridiculous, that can't be true. You never say that, no matter how much your personal experience contraindicates that. You say instead, oh, that's interesting. Well, it takes really 1,000 years to become who you are as a people. So I don't get out of patience with this. In my tradition, that it's understood. If you make a major change, like moving from, as my ancestors did, from Asia, what's now called Asia, across to Turtle Island, which is this continent here, that is a major change. And it takes 1,000 years to really be a people who lives on Turtle Island now, instead of a people that, and this is the European arrivals, a large percentage of my ancestors obviously are European arrivals. People who have only been here for 400 or 500 years. Some of my ancestors, I guess they all got here by, what? So the last one to arrived about 1780, and most of them came in the 1600s, my European ancestors. But still, that's only, what, 300 or 400 years? So we've got another 600 to go before we will have really made the transition. And consequently, I don't get out of patience with this. I don't mean I never lose patience, but I mean I know better. You know, you just don't expect too much too fast. And I was giving a little talk consequently, and I was emphasizing community, because in a Western group, I think this is what you need to do. So one woman came up afterwards. She says, you know, a lot of my friends say the individual is more important than the community. And this is back, you know, in the 70s when we were still suffering from the 60s. And she says, but you seem to be saying the community is more important. Which is more important, the individual or the community? And I said, yes. Because that's the only way it works. That community is wise. That allows maximum opportunity for its individuals to grow and learn and flourish. That individual is wise who contributes to his, to her community. However wonderful and brilliant and capable you may be, there will come a time when you fall down and break your leg and you need somebody to carry you. And if you haven't contributed to your community, there may be no one there to help. So it is foolish in the extreme, in my tradition, to only concern yourself with yourself. In other words, you're always an individual on the circle. Every bit as important as anybody else, but no more important. In my tradition, you say, are you a person of white face? And a person of white face doesn't mean you came from Europe. A person of white face means that you contain within yourself all the colors of light, because all the colors of light put together make white light, like this. And when you are that kind of person, you include the whole. And you only see yourself as a person, one of the people on the circle. And you're the one that you're mainly responsible for. See, that's how that works. But you're only a person on the circle. You absolutely are a person on the circle. You run into people who have a hard time really being on the circle because they, oh yes, the circle's fine. I know I'm bad, but the circle is fine. And they really have a hard time stepping up and towing the line because they don't consider themselves as valuable as they are. And others think they need to stand in the center of the circle. Well, you can't do that because that's where the fire is. In my tradition, one of the things that it says is that if you really want people to understand you, you must say what you have to say 3 times in 3 different ways. Once for each ear and once for the heart. You need to go to a place of peace, the most wisdom you can have, and just be there for a little while and just let life settle around you. And when you do that, all of a sudden, all the kids become their own individual selves. And you stop trying to hammer them into an image of what you think they ought to be. And you begin getting, oh, I get it. Oh, that's why he doesn't understand what I'm saying. But if you just stop putting your format on life and just let life be what it is, and this is wisdom's position. Spirit knows how to do this. Spirit understands that life is what it is. And you've got your boat on a waterway. And you can paddle that boat, you can carry it from one side of the river to the other, but the river is what it is. In my tradition, the old saying is, if you want to change the course of a mighty river, climb a mountain and move a pebble. And that's what you do with children all the time, is help them learn how to climb mountains and move pebbles. What's here is an entire approach to living. Okay? So my job is to represent that approach to living and to find ways. Western society is cut up into bits and pieces. So I need to find ways to access the bits and pieces. Happenstantially, because Jean read in that church and there was an associate supervisor out there, it started with the educational system. I always knew it was going to get into corporations, and for 2 or 3 years there I was really frustrated because I could see it was going there and nobody was hearing me. But it's too late now, they've begun hearing me. As far as health and healing are concerned, right away the material that we have, the 3 learning stories and the medicine wheel that you'll be beginning to learn tomorrow, have already been used in counseling, in psychotherapy. It works any form of information processing. It works beautifully. And Business Services says it's the best book on systems thinking I know of. She says, if somebody comes to me and says, what's all this stuff about systems thinking? And I just give them a copy of Who Speaks to Wolf and figure by the end of the book they'll understand. Which I thought was, I was just blown away. It's just, really? Oh, isn't that interesting? So when I work with little kids and I talk about the rule of 6, I say, if you hear someone say, oh, Cassandra, she's such a snob. Now if you right away take offense because your name is Cassandra, that's one thing. But remember the rule of 6. Maybe there's another Cassandra. Maybe you didn't hear quite right. Maybe they said,
slob.
cassowary. Yeah. Whatever.
Or slob.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Did you hear them right? Were they playing a game? Or were they talking serious? You know, you get into the rule of 6 right away. So the only poem, which I love to share, the only poem my dad ever wrote was, jumping to conclusions leads to contusions. And it's true. It does. So you don't want to do that. And if you start at an early age thinking in terms of rule of 6, you've always got your 98%er. Your most probable option. So this too, when you're getting used to thinking this way, this too does not slow you down. Now I have told you that some of the keepings that my grandfather's grandmother began as a family task include the oral history, the 3 learning stories, and a whole approach to learning.
すでに話したことですが、私のおじいさんがおばあさんから交渉伝を受け継ぐということは、交渉伝を受け継ぐ、それから3つの学びの方法を受け継ぐ、それから学ぶということの全体性を受け継ぐということです。
We say that we prefer modern education tends to create learning from the outside in. That's memorization, learning the right answers. We call that learning from the outside in.
これと近代的な学習というものを比べてみたら、私たちは今のような近代的な勉強の仕方を外側からの学びというふうに言います。それはいろんなものを外から中へ取り入れて記憶し、それから正解というものを学び取るということです。それを外からの学びというふうに呼んでいます。
Instead, what we look for is to find out how each individual learns, so they can teach themselves how to learn from the inside out.
これに対するもので、私たちが達成したいと思っていることは、それぞれの人たちが自分で問いを発することによって内側から湧き上がってくるものでいろんなものを学んでいくという方法です。
To help us with this, the oral history is the gathered wisdom, the gathered learning of the people.
これに役に立つこととして、この交渉伝というのは集団的ないろんな人から集めてきた知恵であるということが一つです。
And the three learning stories are designed to help each person teach themselves how to learn in terms of body, in terms of mind, in terms of spirit.
3つの学びの方法というのはそれぞれの人が3つの方法、つまり体と知性とそれから感性で学ぶということが役に立ちます。
It's as if the oral history is the database and the three learning stories are the entry code that gives you access to the database. The whole idea of a central fire. Now we here are more or less sitting in a circle, and each of us brings who we are to that circle. And it's like bringing wood to the center of the circle. So we construct the wholeness of this group out of the wood that each of us brings. And some of us bring birch, and some of us bring oak, and some of us bring shavings, because we are just the kind of people that process to a fine degree. Some of us bring wood shavings, which make good kindling. We bring all kinds of different things to this central fire. And then eventually, hopefully, something strikes a spark here, and the fire begins to burn. And the fire is our mutual understanding. The fire is our condition of being a group. So several teachers have taken this idea, oh, that's wonderful, we'll get the children thinking about this. What do you bring to the fire? Because the whole idea then is that you join the circle. You're no longer the focus of your life. You're just one of the people in the circle, which is the way you want to think, that I have absolutely equal value to everyone else, absolutely, but not superior value to anyone else. No one is up and no one is down in a circle. You are responsible to try that idea. So if it's how to grow corn, like in the old days when somebody came up with a brilliant idea of adding fish to the hill instead of moving every once in a while, then you try a certain patch of corn. In my tradition, there were any major new change was never made by the whole people. It was only made by some small group that would volunteer, okay, we'll try that one. And then they'd try it, and the idea was that they'd try it for 17 years. Because that's how long it takes for a human being to grow up, and that would mean certain children will have grown up from birth to age 17 in this period of time. And then you look at them and you say, well, did they flourish? Did they not? How did they compare to people who didn't do this? And every 5 years there's a conference in the old tradition. Every 5 years there was a conference to look at progress. And if it was going great guns, if these people were getting healthier, then maybe another group would join in at that point. But never everybody. Never everybody until 17 years was gone. And you could look at children who had grown under no other condition. And then the people could decide to do it all for themselves.
But there's something else that's going on here. We're not just having a beginning class in storytelling. No. We're having a class in how to use your mind to understand life. How to use your mind to figure out what your alternatives are. And if you only see what's there, if you only see what you're supposed to see, then you never will come up with any new ideas, because you'll be wondering in your mind whether you're supposed to see it, whether it's really there. But you have to take the reality apart. You have to take what exists now apart in your mind. I mean, if you take it apart out here, if you take a machine apart, you can't always get it back together, can you? But if you take reality apart in your mind and put it back together in different ways, well, that wasn't working, so maybe we'll twist it around this way and see if that works. If you can do that in your mind, move things around in your mind, that just helps enormously. And it helps to loosen up your thinking. And you begin to think, well, this might not work, maybe that'll work. Storytelling is seen as a way of teaching. It's seen as an opportunity to offer the person you are telling the story to an alternate approach to reality. It's considered supplemental life experience. A story well enough told, you enter into it. You live that story. It's like War and Peace. It gives you a sense of what it's like to be Russian, what it's like to be a member of the intelligentsia
when most of the population is not well educated. You walk through that story